You are listening to Being a Musician podcast. I am Flint Blade, and today we have our co-host Trinity Wave and our special guest Ash Devine. Ash, would you like to kick us off with a song?
I sure would. This is an original tune that I've been working on with my friend Flint Blade. It's called Are You Free?
Might feel to have me at your side and kissing you for real. Do you have to hide from the fantasy? Baby, are you free? Yeah. Baby, are you free? 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 Please tell me. Did you get there, baby? Are you free? 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 Please tell me, how did you get there, baby? Are you free? Did you take a walk and try to forget? Did you hear me singing with every step? Like a radio singing songs in your mind, telling stories of that fateful time. Now are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Please tell me, how did you get there, baby? Are you free? 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 Please tell me how to get there, baby. Are you free? Did you build a time capsule? Did you stay up late? Taking down careful notes of time, place, and date. I tried to describe our love with a paper and pen. Message in a bottle, thrown to the wind. Now are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Please tell me, how did you get there, baby? Are you free? 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 Please tell me how to get there, baby. Are you free? Did you throw it all into the raging river? Did you wait for rain or a windy day? Did you blow a kiss to our love as it set sail? Just a little wish it might reach land someday. Now are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Are you free? Won't you tell me, how did you get there, baby? Are you free? Are you free? Please tell me, are you free? Are you free? Please tell me how to get there, baby. Are you free? Why don't you talk to us about it? did you get there? Baby, are you free? 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 Please tell me, how did you get there? Baby, are you free? Please tell me, how did you get there? Baby, are you free? Great work, Flint.
Thanks. All right, that was Ash Devine singing "Are You Free?" Original composition.
That was fun.
Is that that's a recent composition of yours?
Yeah, that's part of a collection of songs I wrote this winter. I actually was out in Floyd County in a great little cabin in the woods, and I just had more time and headspace than I have probably in the past 15 years, honestly, and was able to write a whole collection of songs. So that came out of that time.
So you were feeling really free then?
I was feeling free in some ways, yes.
Was it a question to yourself then?
No. But, I guess in some ways, the song, I always tell people, the song should not be taken too personally by anyone, even if it references an actual person and an actual story. There's always some fiction to the song, and there's always multiple meanings. So there's an audience that I'm speaking to in the song, but I'm also speaking to myself and from my own experience. So, I would say in general, it's really, songs are mostly about the writer, even if they're saying you and speaking to another person.
It's a really beautiful song.
Thank you.
Trinity is our co-host today. First time on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and Trinity has a slew of questions to interview Ash about. But first, I just wanted to give a little presentation of my own history with Ash. We've been friends for probably 10 years this year. I think it was 2011 when I first met you in Asheville.
Yeah.
And which is where you've been based for many years until recently.
Right.
Yep. And so Ash is a multi-talented musician and humanitarian worker. In addition to be a musician and a songwriter, she's also a humanitarian clown who she was taught by Patch Adams and has done a lot of work overseas and developing countries. And I'm sure that there's so much more that you could say about your life.
I'm sure that's true. How much time you got? Just
We
kidding.
got 43 minutes left.
All right.
But let's see. What do you wanna? What did you have prepared? What do you want to ask Ash?
How long have you been touring?
Touring.
Yeah.
I would say my first go at a tour. How long have I been performing or touring?
A touring performer.
A touring performer. Well, I'll kind of say a little bit about both. So I started performing when I was 13. I was an incredibly self-motivated 12-year-old. I had taken ukulele class in 5th grade, music class, and I loved ukulele. And there was a guitar sitting in the corner of my dad's house. And so my sister and I started teaching each other chords on the guitar, partially from my ukulele chords. I just tried those first. And then I already was performing and trying to perform in coffee shops and stuff by the time I was 13. So I started performing a lot locally around the Southwest Virginia area where I was from and where I lived. And then I probably didn't do my first tour until I was about 20 years old. So I would say, I don't know, do the math. It's 2021.
So over a
I don't
decade.
know. Yes, it was. No, my first tour was probably about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I went up to the Northeast, up to New York. And
was your first tour, was that a single tour, or were you with a band, or?
It was a solo tour. I had a friend, but not someone who was performing with me. So yeah, I've been performing solo a lot all these years, but then I have a lot of friends who are musicians, and typically how it goes is that I meet up with people on the road along the way, and like I did with Flint yesterday, put a band together for a particular gig or a duo together. And that works out pretty well. So that way, after all these years of touring, then I end up playing with the same people over time, you know.
So are you like when you travel, are you staying with friends and other musicians? Is that kind of what you like to do?
Typically, yeah. My whole approach to touring is very grassroots, networking oriented. So I've gotten better at it now, just in these past few years, where I literally take the names and I get the names and phone numbers of certain people that I meet. If they say something to me like, oh, and you could stay at my house if you're ever in town, or, oh, I might know where you can do a house concert. I get their info, I put it in a spreadsheet. And so that way, when I'm touring in that area, I just pull up the zip code and I'm like, oh, I met 5 people last year. And so then each year I have more gigs because I keep a hold of those contacts, and I try to follow up with those kinds of contacts.
Great. And do you do house concerts?
I do. So I do a lot of interesting, variety of types of gigs, and that's part of how I've been able to I don't want to say make it, but make more income as an artist is by varying my work. So I perform, house concerts, and I will perform in a cafe or coffee shop or a listening room folk venue or a festival or a farmer's market, nursing home, teach a workshop here and there, do a presentation at an elementary school, kind of a community-based performer, I've also, one more thing I want to add to that list, though, while we're on the list, is I have a degree in theater too, so I've done a lot of multimedia performance art type things where I'm playing music for a dancer or for a theater piece, or I'm dancing and playing music, so I really like combining the different disciplines.
Right on.
Yeah. Like you all do. Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
we do. What's your favorite type of performance to give?
Well, I'm funny. I don't like the question, what's your favorite ... because I don't really have favorites. It's like, it's kind of like what is like lighting me up the most right now.
Yeah.
And it changes over time. But in a way, what is my favorite? I do love, of course, performing as a singer-songwriter, but I love the feeling. It's a whole other magical realm when you're in a theater setting and I'm playing music informed by what I'm seeing happen on stage. Oh. So I love playing music as a pit musician.
Oh, yeah.
Like in a performance, a dance performance, theater performance. I've done that with drums as well for ecstatic dance, where I'm, and I'm playing off of the other dancers or performers or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's collaborative. So I would say in general, some of my favorite types of performing are like collaborative performances like that, like multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
That's so
types
cool.
of things.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. That really feeds me. I was in a group in Washington State called Playback Theater. That's kind of a well-known type of theater form, where basically you have an audience and a speaker invites a volunteer to come on stage and tell a short personal story. And then the players kind of play it back to them in these series of dance and improvisational forms. Some of it's silent, some of it's actual talking, But there's always a musician there who also spontaneously and improvises music and sound effects for this improvised replay of this person's personal story. So that is one of my favorite roles.
Very cool.
As a musician, because it's so in the moment, and it's like really connecting with the art and the music in the moment, which is kind of what it's all about in a way, like to a degree. We could talk philosophy for a long time about the purposes of art and stuff, but
I saw a super
So
cool.
that's really fun for me.
I saw a super cool performance like that recently, where three friends were playing music while a lady did an interpretive dance.
Yeah.
And it was just like live, and the lighting was great, and everybody was staring at it, and it's just wow, so palpable, the energy.
Yeah. And I've been
really
on the other
cool.
side too, where I'm the player helping to do the improvisation.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say about that is because you just imagine me sitting on the floor with like 20 instruments around me. And so depending on the story that was told and the forms that they're going to use, I'll just pick up the different instruments. I'll have bells, and I'll have a little uke, and I'll have a drum, and I'll have like a train sound, and all these different. So that's really fun.
Yeah.
Doing that kind of narration is what I call it, narrative music,
Yeah.
you know?
We did a big well, we were all involved in performances yesterday at a local outdoor venue, an event.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. Thank you for being there, Ash.
I had so much fun. Thank you for putting it on.
Yeah, you did great.
Thanks. Y'all worked really hard for that too.
Thank you. Do you have any like outdoor concerts that you're really excited about doing in the future?
Well, yeah, I've got some coming up, but just in general, like kind of putting out to the world that, people are saying, oh, the music, everybody stopped. Everyone stopped playing music. Well, there's some truth to that. It has been really hard on the musicians, but I feel hopeful, that there's other places and ways that we can keep playing, and outdoors is one of the best places right now with the COVID situation. So I am going to be playing quite a few outdoor gigs this summer in southwestern Virginia, and I'm doing some down here in Florida, but you can go to my website to find out those actual dates. But yeah, just keeping that in mind that I'm actively
Where do you type
playing.
that in?
ashdevine.net.
Perfect.
And that is spelled ASHDEVINE. So you got to spell it right to get there. ashdevine.net.
For those of you watching the video, that is going to be right across the screen.
All right, great, great. You won't even have to think.
It'll be in the description too.
And I know everyone's dying question, is that your real name? You didn't ask me that, but I just wanted to clear that up now so we don't have to talk about it later. Indeed, it is my real name. My grandfather is Frank Devine. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, and he had 17 brothers and sisters. The Irish Catholic hamsters of the world. They breed like hamsters. No less than 15 babies at a time. And then Ash is short for Ashley. So, my family's been calling me Ash as interchangeably with Ashley my whole life. So
it's
Ash Devine
It's not because of living in Asheville.
It is not.
Oh, okay.
I went by Ash Devine for a good 5 years at least as a stage name before I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah.
Well, we all got fake names around anyway, so
yeah.
We won't judge you.
Well, it's important. It's kind of important to me. I'm actually thinking about titling my next original album, My Real Name is Ash Devine, because
That's
seriously,
bold.
because and even writing a song to go with it, because it's important to me. Like, I'm actually really proud of my family name.
Yeah.
And I really connect with like Ireland, and I'm really proud of my ancestry going back to Ireland, and I just want people to know that my name is my real name.
I love that. I love the title.
It's meaningful to me. It's not something I made up and just like I came into the world with that name,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I find that that's such a loaded question because when somebody asks if that's your real name,
it's rude. It's rude when people say that.
I guess what they mean to really ask is that was that your given name at birth?
Right.
Because I have I go by a different name than what I was given at birth, but that to me it is real. It is as real as anything that I would note to be truthful. So that question, I have a hard time with that question because I'm answering truthfully, but that's probably not what actually they're wanting to ask.
Well, sometimes people say, "Is that your given name?" But it feels the same to me, But it's fine, I just like to clear it up because, like I said, it means something important to me. That Devine is my mother's last name. And my mother played a huge role in my music career, beginning.
What did she do?
She helped me get my first gigs, and really her and my parents in general, they really supported me. I was super young and motivated, like I said, 13 years old. And she encouraged me to like do my first gig in a coffee shop. I remember when we walked into that coffee shop together, she was like, just go up and ask them, if they have music. And I was like too shy. Okay, I'll do it. Let's go. So she kind of forced me to like get my first gig. How cool is that, So I feel really lucky. And also I was privileged in the way that she happened to have the time and space to homeschool me for a few years of my middle school and then into high school. So I was able to really take the time to explore my music playing as part of my curriculum and my education.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so I feel very grateful for that. Yeah.
And so you're involved with teaching as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And that's a good segue because, I was just teaching a young woman today earlier. I don't want to say I want to say a young person because you never know what people's gender orientation is going to be these days. But yeah, it's amazing to be. I really cherish and feel very blessed or lucky for having had that experience as a young person. To be able to. Because I did have a lot of emotional problems as a young person. So sometimes I say, if I hadn't had music, I might have been like a drug addict or something. Like, I had a lot of trauma in my earlier childhood. And often people, who've had trauma have a harder time when they're going through that stage of puberty and all that growing up and everything. And, you can get into some bad situations when have a lot of feelings that you don't know how to deal with. And so I put that straight into my music and songwriting, and I just really processed my life and like my inner emotional world and, my life experiences up to that point with music.
That's
and
so beautiful.
So and also it's a gift everywhere I go. It's like I don't make a ton of money at this point doing it, but it is a way I can make money kind of at any time if I put some amount of effort into, like I have this skill to play music and to teach music or lead it and all these things. Not only that, but it's like spiritually fulfilling for me or emotionally healing for me to do it. And so being able to pass that on, coaching young people in developing that skill as well. Because it's not only a skill, it's also a tool, and it's like a friend. Like music goes through your life. It's almost like your life partner, When everybody else lets you down, you can fall back on music for support and for comfort, So
what do you teach?
It's pretty amazing. I teach ukulele primarily and acoustic guitar. So I've been doing that online since the pandemic began. I was doing it in person in a group setting before that, and that was super fun. And I'm looking forward to resuming that when it's safe to. But yeah, so I've got students from all over the country right now, which is really fun.
That's beautiful.
I'm always, I have quite a few openings as well. So always putting that out there if people are interested in getting their kid enrolled and learning the ukulele, which is the perfect gateway to guitar. As I mentioned earlier, it was my gateway to guitar. So, yeah.
I'd love if you could teach me just a few chords.
Absolutely, and that's the thing with ukulele.
Right here on the podcast.
No, not right now. But
that's the thing. We should do another podcast that's all about that, how you can learn a few chords in a 45-minute session.
Yeah.
You got to practice it after that, but...
That's about as long as my attention span is, so that's perfect.
Most people, it's true. All my lessons are actually 45 minutes tops. I don't do hour lessons unless people specifically request it.
Right
So,
on.
Yeah.
You want to play another song for us?
Yeah, so this is a traditional Appalachian song that the Carter family, a old country band from Mesa Spring, Virginia, made popular. And this is the type of music I grew up hearing, that you can kind of hear the influence of this Appalachian traditional style in my originals. And this is called A Friend to Me.
The bark of life was tossing down the troubled stream of time, when first I saw your smiling face and youth was in its prime. Oh, I'll ne'er too. I would have had a broken heart had it not been for you. Oh, I'll never forget wherever I roam, wherever you may be. If ever I have had a friend, you've been that friend to me. Now I look back upon the past, upon life's troubled sea, and smile to think through all I've seen. You've been that friend to me. Oh, I'll never forget wherever I roam, wherever you may be. If ever I have had a friend, you've been that friend to me. You've been that friend to me. That's A Friend to Me by the Carter Family.
It's really cool to me that just to compare the musical styles that we've had on the podcast so far, the traditional Appalachian music compared to the last one, which was like beatbox, looping, and sax playing.
Your last guest, you mean?
Yeah, the last guest on
Nice.
the podcast.
Very eclectic.
Yeah, and I think it's cool, and I want to keep going in that direction and have as many different cultural influences as possible. And part of the whole mission here is to give independent artists a platform to, share their art and share their culture. So
Right.
yeah,
Nice.
really cool.
I think that it's really beautiful that you go to nursing homes and you perform for people in isolation and who might not have a friend really or any family or Can you speak a little bit about those experiences?
Yeah, sure. So when I was in school for my bachelor's degree in theater and interdisciplinary studies, it was all about using music for activism and community building and in that interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary kind of social justice sense. And I discovered the opportunity to go on a clown trip with Patch Adams to Haiti during my spring break. It was called the Alternative Spring Break. And I thought, ooh, performing in hospitals? Like, yeah, that sounds like something I would do. And so I went, and that's actually when I first picked up the ukulele, because it was just a more portable instrument to take on a plane, airplane, and in walking around in a hospital and stuff. So yeah, that's how I discovered the magic of doing that, of going to places where people are tucked away from society and doing music and art in that context. So yeah, I did it once, and then I was addicted. I mean, I was hooked. There's just no turning back. So I went on 6 or 7 additional international clown missions doing that. And then I started doing it in nursing homes and assisted living facilities and, adult day programs here in the United States. And so that's been an integral part of my work as a musician ever since I did my first clown trip, which was in 2007, I believe.
So it's almost, do you actively consider yourself a healer, or do you think of just music is the healer and you're just like the conduit? Like, how do you see that?
And that's a cool question. Well, it's almost a whole additional podcast, but I do think of, it's the word healer kind of has a lot of, depending on who's hearing it and the way and the context you're saying it, it can have a lot of confusing social connotations, So I don't advertise myself as a healer. But yes, like on a personal level, I'm aware that I'm participating in the healing process, and that there are times when I'm facilitating that, and so I have definitely seen healing occur, like amazing, what I call them success. They're the moments of success that keep me doing the work. Here, I'll give you a quick example, is that I'll never forget this. This was probably one of my first nursing home gigs. I kind of just hit the ground running. I just went in there with my guitar and a bag full of costumes and percussion instruments, and I just made it up. And then over the years, I really refined my kind of method. And so now I have kind of an outline that I follow. But in the beginning, it was all improvisational, which is what the clowning was very much like as well. So I went into this one place, and I was doing a clowny sing-along thing. And there's a lady just slumped over in her chair. And you see this a lot in assisted living, like in the nursing and rehab places, just people just caved in, and like sometimes you can just really feel the grief. It's like they're literally almost hugging themselves with this caved in position. And she's sitting there though. She's listening to the songs and everything. And I stopped at one point, which I often do, and I say, "Is there anyone in the room who would like to share a song? Anybody getting inspired?" Because the format of my performance is a lot about engagement and trying to draw out, giving people a chance to like express themselves in the group setting. There's a lot of just sitting in silence and not connecting that happens in these places sometimes. So she just lifted up her head out of nowhere, and it was like there was some moments of silence. She goes, "I have a song to share." And she sang the most beautiful song. It was original song. She sounded like a bird, that very high-pitched singing with the tremolo. I mean, she was a good singer. And it was gorgeous. It was like very poetic, imagery about something. I think it was even about a bird maybe. And then after that, I had her share a couple more songs, and she just lit up and came alive. And I started asking her, tell me about these songs. Where do you have these written down? She's like, "Oh yeah, at my house in Georgia." And she just basically had woken up in that place one day and just lost everything. She, who knows if her house was even there anymore? Like, it may have been sold, or who knows. And then the nurse came up to me after the session. I really connected with this woman. I have a beautiful photograph of me and her, actually, that I'll forever cherish. But the nurse came up and said, "That was amazing. I've never seen that." She's been here for 4 months and has not said a word to anyone. Never spoken, never lifted up her head. We didn't even know she could talk.
Wow. It's amazing.
And so these are the moments where I can't take credit for that. I mean, that was her. I prompted, and I kind of set the space to where people feel safe. They feel like, oh, someone wants to hear me talk. Someone's interested in hearing something that I have to say or share or tell a story or sing a song or whatever it is, or talk about I've met people in these places, everything from a famous Broadway dancer who ends up doing a little dance for us, to concert pianists who I convinced to get on the piano and play for us, or, so it kind of turns into this magical healing talent show. So yeah, I would say there is healing there. And sometimes, so those are the moments that it's like, when that happens, like, whoa, I need to keep doing this, because those are the moments that they just matter so much to humanity. It's just a little bit of time chipping off, so that is the healing process. It's like we're all doing whatever we can.
Well, I'm sure, like,
to contribute,
when you're giving yourself, when you're opening yourself up and expressing, yourself, it gives other people permission to do the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's part of it. Yeah. I have many, many stories, and I probably am going to write a book someday, honestly, on this topic, because You know, there's so much to say. And it is, I do think of myself, actually, if I had a title, I think of myself as a magician. And that's my magic trick is like, and I can't always do it. I mean, I'm not saying that those moments always happen at every single gig, but there's usually at least one at each gig. Even if it's not the whole room, sometimes it's the whole room and I get that kind of moment with like 10 people. But sometimes it's just one person, you know, but it's amazing, you know, and it happens with kids too. It's not only the older adults, but you know, the magician moments. Yeah, so I feel more comfortable saying, yes, I'm a magician. You know, I can do several magic tricks that will blow your mind.
You need a cape. Like
but
a
I can't, at
cape.
the same time that I'm doing the magic trick, I'm not really trying to take credit for it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm kind of give the person that I'm interacting with the credit, all the credit.
I liked when you said you're like the facilitator of the healing and the magic, you know, like you're creating the situation for it to come up.
And you can't control what's going to come up too. And that's the other thing about this, and it's wrapped up in the philosophy that I learned from working with Patch is that, you know, we want to avoid at all cost the colonizer mentality. We're not doing charity. We're not coming in to make people's lives better. And then we get to go home and be like, feel all good about ourselves for, oh, you made that person smile today. Like, that's not how I think about it because that's putting me above that person. It's a power dynamic as much as it might have like a positive intention, like, oh, I'm going to go help some people. Yes, there's that, right? But when you get there, you have to put yourself at the level on the social pyramid or below the person because they are already the lowest on the social pyramid. They have almost no power in their lives. They have to rely on another person to eat, to use the bathroom, to change their clothes, to go from one activity to the next. They don't get to choose very much at all anymore, right? So if I come in and I'm like, I'm going to make you do all these things and I'm going to make you smile and then I get to, you know, feel good about myself when I go home. We have to like try to take that out because that's how we're trained to be in this culture in a lot of ways. It's kind of like, it's like a competitive way of thinking, whether or not we mean to be a power over, you know. So the way we try to approach with the humanitarian clowning, which is the philosophy also that I bring when I do these programs in the nursing homes, is I'm here and I am like receiving a gift from these people. They're the ones that get the blue ribbon.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's extremely privileged to have been able to hear their story. And, you know, they're healing me. You know, so
That's
I'm not
beautiful.
Yeah. And it's important because then if I come in with that openness, I can receive healing from it. If I go in and I'm thinking, my intention is, well, I'm going to make people feel happy today, then I might leave there feeling extremely drained because I will have just been trying and pouring out my energy and trying to do all these things. But if I go in with this openness of like, I'm going to be embraced by them. Like, I'm going to give them a chance to make my life better because when do they ever get to do that anymore? They don't get to take care of other people anymore, you know? There's always people taking care of them. So they're just like, it's like a chance to not feel like a burden for a minute and to feel like they're, you know, for giving the people the opportunity to contribute. You know?
It's powerful.
Yeah. It is. It's really, you know, working with Patch changed my life in that way. So I've really kind of like walked with that. Not saying I do it perfect all the time, but that's the real like philosophy behind my humanitarian work as an artist is decolonizing
It seems
love, really.
Yeah.
You know, and art. Because, you know, I mean, we can be colonizers as artists as well, unintentionally. because that's the society
That's
we live
a whole
in.
nother podcast.
It really is. I know. I see you getting really excited about this topic. You're like, oh, yes. Frothing at the mouth. Deconstructing.
It
I love
seems
it.
like a very fulfilling experience.
Yeah.
And also potentially like a lot to process.
It
Type of
is. I
work.
mean, there is a lot of devastation in the world, you know, and I think sometime on this trip, I'm trying to remember when. I can't remember, but every now and then I have a memory of, oh, you know what? I was listening to NPR and I keep hearing these little bits on the border situation and the thousands of children that they are holding right now, you know, in these detention centers, and they're trying to figure out what to do with them. And the kids are fleeing warring countries. I've been to these countries, you know, I've seen what they're fleeing, and the types of places that they're being held in are places that, if we could, as clowns, those are the type of places we go when we go on clown trips. We go to like detention centers and mental hospitals and orphanages and HIV clinics and places where it's like 4 things in one. It's a mental hospital and a HIV clinic and a hospice, and they're like a bunch of nuns are running it, like all of those different things in one place. But my point is that just every once in a while, I kind of have, I don't want to say a flashback, but just kind of like this, once you see certain things and hold the level of desperation and suffering that the humans on this planet are experiencing, when you hold that, it's usually in a child, once you hold a starving child, and you know that they're starving because of the oppression and because of the choices that humans have made, and that it's unnecessary for them to be suffering on that level, then there's like no going back. It's just like, you can't forget that, you know? So once again, though, I feel having held that in my hands numerous times, and then also witnessing it here in this country. I mean, there's plenty of poverty here. And a lot of it exists within the older adult population. Many of these nursing homes people are there because they don't have families or money. So they just ended up there because Medicaid pays for it, right? So anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but it's, kind of got lost in my thought there.
That's okay.
It's a lot to process, I think, is what I was getting at. It is. Yeah. But I still feel, I don't feel sorry for myself for having all that to process. You know, sometimes it is a little, you're right, it can be a little mind-boggling.
Kind of heavy sometimes.
It can be, but it's, I think I just really need to write a book.
Yeah.
You know, like I just need to tell the stories, I think.
I know you're also a permaculture advocate. And you've been involved in some really interesting permaculture projects, one of them being something you were talking to me about.
I'm not even sure what you're about to say.
So you told me you were doing some touring with a permaculture group. Can you talk a little bit about that briefly?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
One of the funnest volunteer gigs I've done, besides the clowning, which was very weird and interesting in itself. But this was here in the United States. It was with a group called Common Vision, and
that's right.
Their mission is to plant fruit trees in schoolyards where there is a food desert in California. I think they're only in California, so they're a nonprofit organization. They've been really successful. I mean, they've planted thousands and thousands of fruit tree orchards, and then they also do educational programs with the kids and the staff of how to maintain the orchard and, you know, and so they're making a really big impact through that. And there's also music and art involved, so whenever they show up and do a planting, they do an assembly typically with puppet show and musicians and, you know, things using the art to deliver the educational piece, the message before we do the planting.
That's such like a beautiful part of education that it seems to be lacking a lot in the public school system. So I think that's really beautiful. Yeah. A really beautiful nonprofit and thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's that multidisciplinary thing. It's, combining the activism and the education and the arts, which is definitely what I'm all about.
Beautiful.
So, Common Vision. Yeah, before COVID, it was like you could just volunteer and go on tour with them for 2 weeks. And they probably do several tours a year. And so I definitely recommend it once they get started again, checking it out if that's something that interests you.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ash, I think so far the content that you have shared with us is some of the most substantial material we've had of the podcast so far. So really appreciate you having here.
You get the blue ribbon.
Profound, you mean?
Yeah, no, it's just really meaningful,
Thank you.
Because
yeah.
not everybody's in that world.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
you're in a lot of different worlds.
Yeah.
So.
It's something that, I think it was part of kind of my upbringing too. Is like a lot of the ethics of service, of community, taking care of the people around you, trying not to be judgmental of difference, and from what I hear from my divine ancestors, most of the divines are artists in some form. So, I don't know, just carrying it on.
You got one more song to play for us?
I do, and I think with everything we've been talking about, I'm going to do one of my new tunes that I wrote right after finishing my unemployment application online, and kind of right as the pandemic was hitting at the end of March 2020. And it was very clear that we're coming into this new time in society when we're being called to make a lot of changes, and it's going to be really tough. It has been really tough, but it's a necessary sometimes for things to get all shooken up before they can come back together in a good way. So this song's called All Hands on Deck. Just got off the unemployment site. Hope I did my application right. Now I'm sitting in the evening light, opening a second beer. The wind has been howling about all week long. It's like the earth is singing us a song about the storm that's been coming on. Good part of last year. It's time to batten down the hatches, get our stuff together. Coming in for more stormy weather. It's hard to say how long this will last, so all hands on deck until it passes. All hands on deck until this passes. Some people say this is all a joke. The government is going up in smoke. COVID-19 is just some kind of hoax to control people with fear. And others say the killer in disguise is the man telling us those lies. And when he pretends to sympathize, he just sounds so insincere. It's time to batten down the hatches and get our stuff together. We're coming in for more stormy weather. It's hard to say how long this will last, so all hands on deck until it passes. All hands on deck until this passes. The wind is howling, the waves are mean. It's the biggest storm we've ever seen. Watch out for that current, it'll pick up fast. This may be the first, but it won't be the last time we all let go of the world we used to know. What the children think of inheriting a world that's nearly on the brink of falling apart like a leaky sink. Eventually it had to give. So I just made myself a brand new job. Planted a garden in my neighbor's yard. I did it for my elders, I did it for God. I did it just because I care. It's time to batten down the hatches and get our stuff together. We're coming in for more stormy weather. It's hard to say how long this will last, so all hands on deck until it passes, as we all let go of the world we used to know.
Awesome tune.
Thanks. You know, change is good, but it's never easy. It's kind of the message there.
I haven't really heard too many COVID songs, but I think that was the hottest one yet.
Thanks, Flint.
That was really good.
Thanks. I really like that song too.
Your songwriting is impeccable.
Aw.
And you know, we're just so grateful to have your voice in this world.
Aw, thanks, Flint. Likewise.
Yeah. And Trinity, thanks for being a co-host on this episode. Hope to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
It was great talking with you, Trinity.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Ash.
I also really respect both of you as artists, so I'm really glad that we could collaborate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Ash.
All right. Thanks for having me.